Assassin's Creed. This is a very interesting IP. It's an IP that I'm a fan of. I really love Assassin's Creed. I played every single Assassin's Creed under the sun. And it has a game that is, okay, let's say it's very interesting because I've never seen this happen with another game. So in the Assassin's Creed IP, we got a new game that came out this year that's being supported, being updated, but all of a sudden they decided to make a DLC and update for the game that came before the one that released this year. So again, that's very odd. Let me know in the comment sections down below if that has ever happened with another franchise. I'm of course talking about Assassin's Creed Mirage. That is the game that we're going to be dissecting today. We're going to take a look at systems. We're going to take a look at models. If you want to just take a look at the models, there'll be a chapter for you, so you can just skip to that. We're also going to be comparing the parkour system from this game to the parkour system of Shadows, which is the actual new Assassin's Creed. And the answer to who has the best parkour system will surprise you. So make sure you watch the whole thing. Let's get started. Alright, Assassin's Creed Mirage. This game was supposed to be a DLC for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but ended up being a standalone game. Everybody was really happy that it ended up being a standalone game. And for reasons that we'll be discussing in a little bit, you'll see that, yeah, this game was actually designed to be a DLC and not really a standalone. But aside from that, this is one of the type of Assassin's Creeds that us fans of the mainline, what we call the mainline Assassin's Creed, that means from Assassin's Creed 1 up until Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and then there are the RPGs. All school fans have been wanting an Assassin's Creed like this for many years now, because the RPGs Assassin's Creed deviated a lot from what an Assassin's Creed game should be. Being that it contains assassin lore, it contains a lot of parkour as the main means of traversal around the world, and it contains Templar. Not that Mirage has Templars, because this is like way in the past, so they're still, Templars have not showed up yet, but at least it has three things going on that the majority of RPGs don't have. So one of the things that tickles the nostalgia factor for myself, at least, is the fact that since this game is based on a Middle East location, it has a lot of similarities with Assassin's Creed 1. Actually, when this game came out and I played it, I said, Ubisoft, you had all the tools now to remake Assassin's Creed 1. Like literally all the assets are here. All the, maybe you don't have the base landmarks for like Jerusalem, Acre, and all the other cities, but you do have a lot of assets and a lot of NPCs that you can reuse for that. And like I said, being the Middle Eastern setting, it's the birth of Assassin's Creed. So if you play the game, it takes you back. I'm not a fan of Basim as a character because I played Assassin's Creed Valhalla. He is the villain in Valhalla. I don't think this story makes me feel better about him. Some people like him, but hey, that's just my opinion. The graphics from this are still quite good because it is on the same vein as Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Assassin's Creed Valhalla was having very good visuals. The major improvements actually came with Assassin's Creed Shadows. I do think that between Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, there isn't that much variation. The biggest leap came with Shadows, which we're going to see the difference between Basim and Naue later down in this video as character models. The way that you do assassinations in this game is very reminiscent of the old school way of doing things. However, the combat is, I'm not very fond of the combat because I think it's neither the RPG nor is it the mainline. See, I ended up liking the combat between Assassin's Creed 2 and Unity. This type of combat was mainly based on a counter system. I believe this style of combat was born from Batman, the Arkham Origin series, and it's a combat style that I really like. The same with the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War. This is the type of combat that I personally like. So this was combat that was implemented in Assassin's Creed 2. It was in Assassin's Creed Unity, and it got lost in Assassin's Creed Syndicate. On the RPGs, they migrated to doing combat like Dark Souls-ish, then Witcher-ish. Was never a fan of it. At least Assassin's Creed Odyssey's combat was more fun, but in the end, combat here in this game is not so great. It did improve it in Shadows, but again, this is not a Shadows game. We're going to talk about Shadows in another video. Now, moving on to what actually makes this game better than Shadows. For one, the writing in this game has a little bit more to do with Assassin's Creed than anything that's going on in Shadows. In Assassin's Creed Mirage, you are literally part of the Hidden Ones. There is a teaching. You can see Basim growing as a character, as an assassin. So you do assassin contracts the old school way, and it's pretty refreshing. It's funny because at the time of Assassin's Creed Syndicate, a lot of people were saying that they were tired of the Assassin's Creed formula. I particularly wasn't. I loved the formula back then. I still love it, and I love that Assassin's Creed Mirage is bringing the formula back to basics. I do hope that Assassin's Creed Hexi and whatever comes next does allows us to keep that formula, because that is what makes Assassin's Creed Assassin's Creed. Now, another thing that makes this game better than Assassin's Creed Shadows, and it makes it look better despite the fact that the visuals in Shadows are technically better, this game does look and feel better just because the mocap animations are very good. It looks like they actually mocapped all of the cutscene, like the in-game cutscenes. It seems like they mocapped them all, and it looks very nice, as opposed to Shadows, where I speculated that in Assassin's Creed Shadow they're using some sort of AI-driven motion capture, and that's why everything is so flat. Again, that's my speculation. Doesn't necessarily have to mean that's what they actually used, but you can tell the difference between Assassin's Creed Mirage and Assassin's Creed Shadows in that regard. Now, let's talk about parkour. When it comes to Assassin's Creed, what made Assassin's Creed the game, aside from the other things that I mentioned in the beginning, was the way of traversing the world. See, the first Assassin's Creed that actually made the IP what it is had parkour as its main traversal mechanic. Yes, you had a horse that you could ride in between cities, but when you were doing the main quest, for the most part, like I would say 80% of the time, you were in a city. In Assassin's Creed 1, like I said, you were in Acre, you were in Jerusalem. There is a little bit of an overworld between those cities, and there were activities in between the cities, and you rode a horse, and it was really clunky. But still, the time that you spent on that horse was not long. And most of the main quest was you inside the city. So parkour was your main mode of traversal. Same thing with Assassin's Creed 2. Most of the time you were either in Venice, Monteriggioni, Florence, and that's why playing the game was so much fun, especially something like Assassin's Creed Unity. It is the traversal in Assassin's Creed Unity, it is the most fun to do. When you have fun traversal, people don't want to use fast travel, and that's one of the issues that I have with the RPG games, and that's one of the issues that I have with Assassin's Creed Shadows, where a lot of traversal you have to do by horse. Yes, it's a big, huge world and all that, but you have to be on a horse all the time. Now, let's discuss who has the better parkour of these two games. And here's the answer. Which one do you guess it is? It's Shadows. Yes, Assassin's Creed Shadows has the best parkour so far. And before you start writing that I'm wrong, because I know a lot of people disagree with it, let me make my case, and then you can tell me if I'm still wrong. So when it comes to parkour, with Assassin's Creed Shadows, you got Naoya. She is pretty fast, actually. If you look how she moves, not only when she's on the ground, but when she is running through the roofs, she is very agile, very nimble. I do think that adding the flips was a nice touch, although not really necessary. But the way that she goes up and she goes down of various things, the animations flow a lot better. And the animations, I know some people say, well, it's just the animations. I'm interested in the mechanics. Yes, I get that. But the animations do add a lot of the fun of you traversing the game. Now, another thing that's very important in me deciding which one had the best parkour was the speed and the movement of the character. If you see the way that Naoya moves, she is very agile on the ground, on the rooftops. Whereas if we compare it to Basim, you can see that Basim is very heavy. Is still like he looks like he's wearing a ton of armor. I know he's wearing a lot of clothes and all that, but still he looks very heavy. The reason why he looks like that is because his running animation is Ivor's animation. So in the case of Ivor's from Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it does make sense that he looks very heavy, clunky and all that because it's a Viking running. It's not an assassin. Actually, Eivor had like zero parkour. Like there was very like 0.5% of parkour in that game. We just climbed stuff. Because Assassin's Creed Mirage was supposed to be a DLC, there were a lot of things that got inherited from Valhalla, and one of them was Basim's animation. So even when he is sprinting, you can see he has Ivor sprint. So it looks like somebody really heavy running on the ground. And I know you're going to say, well, realism, those clothes and the things that his sword is very heavy compared to Naoya. Shinobis usually wore a little bit of lighter clothes, but we're talking about the IP, not what's real. This game is not real. This game is sci-fi. So when it comes to the IP, I give you Arno. Arno Dorian in the French Revolution had very thick clothes because he was wearing coats, he was wearing weapons that were very heavy. And you can still, if we go into the realism argument, you can see that Arno still very agile when he moves, not only on the ground, but on the roof. So I would say when it comes to speed of movement, Naoya is closer to Arno than Basim. Now, the second thing is how the parkour movements are executed. Now, with this, I think in Assassin's Creed Mirage, it suffers a little bit of the issues that we had in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, where once you press the button of running up, then it gets too magnetic to surfaces. So Basim tries to like magnetically connect to surfaces that he can climb, even though that might not be the direction you're facing. Yes, you have to like get used to it. And I've seen some people that have mastered the parkour and can do like really flawless runs, and it's beautiful to look at. But there is that little problem of magnetism when you get too close to the surfaces. And by that, usually what happens is the hitbox of when the character gets too close to the hitbox, it instantly goes to that animation to flips and start climbing that. And I think they nailed it in Assassin's Creed Unity, where it wasn't too magnetic, but it was still magnetic enough that was more accessible. Now, in Assassin's Creed Shadows, I think there isn't that much magnetism to the objects that you're supposed to climb, but that has to do more with the environment than I think the actual mechanic. So now that I explained why I think technically Assassin's Creed Shadows parkour is better, let's get into why the parkour in Assassin's Creed Mirage feels better. And that has to do with Baghdad. The city that you're in, Assassin's Creed Mirage, allows you to do parkour. It's laid out like a playground for you to do parkour. You can actually see the things where you can climb and you can just do stuff. And that is your main model of traversal. There is a camel that you can ride in Assassin's Creed Mirage, but for the most part, I would say 90% of the time in Assassin's Creed Mirage, the way that you traverse from point A to point V, you will be doing parkour from different buildings. And the other problem that Assassin's Creed Shadows has is the lack of verticality, because in feudal Japan, there were no various stories building, at least not unless you are inside of castles. The towns were shanty towns. There's just like one floor shacks and all that. So even if you see like the big houses in Assassin's Creed Shadows, there's just one floor. So unless it's a temple or unless it's a castle, there are many vertical differences between the assets. So it's not so much a playground for parkour like you can do in Baghdad. In Baghdad, it's a tighter city, so you can even do like the jumps in between various ledges, and it's just more fun. That really adds to the fun. Even though there are surfaces, like you can just go in a straight line on the ground and get to your objectives, but in Mirage, if you get to the roof and you just start going up and down, and just doing flips in between surfaces on the narrow corridors, that's what makes traversal fun. And then in Assassin's Creed Shadows, like the cities are very, very small. I think Tokyo and Elmi for me are the best-ish cities for parkour, and they're not that big. Like going from one point to the other, it's actually not that long. So most of the time in Shadows, you're riding a horse. Even though you had great parkour system, it is wasted because you don't have the setting to be using this parkour. So now that I've explained my reasons why one is better than the other and why one feels better than the other, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment sections down below. I would really like to hear what you have to say. Now, before we get into the model section, there is something that relates to Shadows and Mirage. I would never understand why there are so many Assassin's Creed fans that wanted Assassin's Creed in Japan. At least in feudal Japan, because Assassin's Creed has always been a Middle Eastern kind of deal. Like, yes, they are assassins, yes, they use stealth, but they were never ninjas. They were always like warriors from the Middle East, the kind of weaponry that they use. Yes, they use the small daggers and stuff, and they killed stealthily, but because of the robes that they were wearing, they could blend into the social aspect, which gave you social stealth, which we don't have in Assassin's Creed Shadows because, I don't know, they decided to get rid of that. But we do have in Assassin's Creed Mirage, to a very small degree. I wouldn't say the social stealth in Mirage is useful at all. At least it's not useful in the way that it was in Assassin's Creed 1 or 1, 2, 3. I think the disparity between these two games explains pretty well why Assassin's Creed never worked in a Japanese settings, because you were never going to have the towns to realize that kind of parkour. But yeah, let me know in the comment sections down below. What do you think about that? Let's go to the models now. Okay, so we got Basim here in Blender, and what we have him on is the Ezio Auditore's robes from Assassin's Creed Revelation, or at least from that time. I already have the Altair's robe on the channel. It's actually the very first Dissected video. It's on the playlist down below if you want to check that out. But for this one, I thought that we see something new. So we got Ezio's robes, and you can see the quality of everything that goes into this model. If we get closer, all that I have, by the way, as usual, is just normal maps and the diffuse or color, however you want to call it. But if we get closer, you can see how nice and detailed everything is. All the leather, the wear and tear of the leather, everything around this little ornaments. Of course, the alpha map didn't translate pretty well once I brought the character out of the game, but everything else, you can see the normal maps kind of doing their work on the fabric, and everything looks fantastic. This character looks great, and he is at 69,968 triangles, which for AAA nowadays is actually not that high. It's on the low-ish side of the situation. Now, we are going to do a comparison between Basim and Naue at the end, so make sure you stay the whole way through. Now, if we go into this view so we can check out the topology, you can see the flow on his topology is very good. Now, I'm going to ask you for a favor, because some people have asked for the triangulated version of the character. Some people like to see the quads. They can see the flow more evident. So let me know which one do you like. Do you like to see the character triangulated, because this is how they come out straight out of the game? Or would you rather see the character quadrangulated so we can actually see the flow? Please let me know in the comment sections down below so I can make a decision for the next dissected video. For now, I'm going to keep with the triangulated version of the assets, which is how it comes out of the game. And you can see, still even with the triangles, you can see how cool and how perfect the quads are in various parts of the model all around. Of course, there's a little bit more triangles that can be appreciated in the surfaces, especially if you're trying to make a surface that is round and optimized. Still, it's interesting that even in these little details, you can see that there are support loops for the surfaces. Same thing all around the belt. So it's pretty cool. Another thing is from this character is comprised of various pieces, and that has to do with the kind of customization that you can do inside of Assassin's Creed Mirage. Of course, you can see that the density is much higher on the face than everything else, and that has to do with the fact that this game has in-game cutscenes, and they are very well done, and there's a lot of topology that is needed for facial movement. Now, another thing that's very interesting about this character is how everything is positioned. So things are not really clipping. Like you can see things are on top of each other over here. There's a lot of overlap here on this part of his belt because that's how his belt works. And then this goes into here and comes out here to hold this belt, and then this belt hold this belt. So it's very, very nice and very well done, very detailed character. Now, UV wise, you can see that in the case of Assassin's Creed, they're doing something that we mentioned a lot on the Dissected series, which is if you want to save space and you have a symmetrical character, then you just put things out of the 0 to 1 space to save some space. And you'll be able to see it with other things, like if we actually go into the hoodie, you can see that the hoodie is not just the hoodie. It has other parts of the character that should be in here. So that is another reason why you want to save space, is even if a piece is separate, you still want to save and optimize a little bit so you have different parts into one single textures. Of course, keeping quality in mind, because these are AAA games and you want these characters to look amazing all the time. Now, if we look at the pants parts, the pants is the one that has the most objects on it, because you have the boots, you have this part of the belts, you have the belts, you also have the bracers. So you have several things combined here. Another thing is that these are not rectified. And what do I mean by rectified is when you see those UVs that are a complete rectangle. If you see my dissected video for Valorant, you'll see what I mean, because everything is like very squared up. It doesn't have to be the case for every single character out there, and I'd say it's very art director dependent. Most of the rectified UVs that I've seen are usually dedicated for more stylized characters. Aside from when it comes to more realistic art style, the UVs still have a very straight shape in a way, but they're not completely rectified. Also depends if it's a belt or if it's a cylinder or if it's just a round piece. You can see that it's pretty much kind of looks rectified over here. So there's that argument. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, I want to compare it to nowadays models. This isn't an Assassin's Creed Shadows Dissected video. There will be a specific video for Assassin's Creed Shadows, so make sure you subscribe for that. I just want you to see how wide the difference is between Basim and Naue. You can see that Basim had rounded up 70,000 triangles. Naue, without any weapons, has 229,000 triangles. And these are, it's not that one is an NPC and the other one is main character. These are both main characters. And when it comes to something between Mirage and Shadows, these games are not too far apart. So this isn't Origins and Shadows. This is like the game right next to it. So you can see how heavy she is compared to Basim. And yeah, you can see that there is quite a bit of a difference between the visuals of Assassin's Creed Mirage, which pretty much were the same visuals as Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and the visuals of Assassin's Creed Shadows. This is not quite like, for instance, the difference between Assassin's Creed 2 and Assassin's Creed Revelation, even though they're actually one game apart, there isn't that much of a difference, at least not to this degree, polygon wise. So there is a video that I want to make, and it's comparing all the assassins, like from Assassin's Creed 2 all the way to Assassin's Creed Shadows, because I think this is a very good franchise to show the evolution of how different the character models have become with the passing of time. So make sure you subscribe for that. It's going to be a very interesting video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave me a like, leave me a comment, it goes a long way for helping the channel. I'll see you in the next one.